Rewilding yourself.
Having a moment where we need a break, or we need to step out, or we can feel that we're going to have a meltdown. I don't know what it feels like for you, but I can feel a meltdown building for a while. And for me, I know that if I don't remove myself from the situation, it will happen. And it's like an out-of-body experience. I can't guarantee my behaviour. I can't guarantee what's going to come out of my mouth. I can't guarantee what I'm going to do with my body. And I'm a 41-year-old woman, so I've had a while to work out that when I need to get out of there, I need to get out of there. And, you know, I have a toolkit.
So one of my tools is the way I eat. And I have experimented with so many ways of eating. And this is absolutely the most beneficial. So I keep doing that. And it has kept me functional and healthy. So here you just see what is in it: some shrimp, bone marrow, some bacon, and some deer meat today. And then, of course, there is Amanita muscaria that has finally removed the remaining health issues which I couldn't resolve with carnivory. But these two together, just amazing. Alienated and cut off as we now were from Mother Earth, the reflections that begin to emerge around this time are sky religions. They tell us that God is good and that Goddess is bad, that we can do what we like with the earth, that earthly existence is something to be transcended, reflecting the societies that they evolve in. They are hierarchical in nature, with multiple levels of priesthoods and initiations. Ordinary people can no longer be in direct communication with spirit, but now instead have to go through the priests. For the first time in human history, we see the notion of religious orthodoxy emerge, and the persecution of non-believers. Of course, we also see the rise of patriarchy and the subjugation of women, of half of the human population, justified by the sky religions, elevation of God and the masculine, and denigration of Goddess and the feminine. Our disconnection from Father-Son. In the modern era, it is not just Mother Earth and the other peoples that we share her with, that we have lost connection with. We have lost true connection with Father-Son too, replacing him with distorted projections made in our own image. We create gods who share the worst of human flaws, gods who are capricious, violent, demanding, wrathful, vengeful, and so on. Gods who demand servitude, obedience, penance, and sacrifices of blood and gold. Psychopathic gods who wage wars, sleep with their sisters, rape, kill their parents, gods who send plagues, pestilence and floods, and so on. Narcissistic, jealous gods who demand our full attention, saying that we must worship them and only them. Gods who become obsessed with us humans, dictating how we dress, what we eat, and even what we do in the privacy of our own bedrooms. Undeniably, the gods of the fall are a very mixed bag, reflecting as they do all of human nature. These are modern gods, arising out of the damaged collective unconscious material that our self-domestication and the fall have created. They are nothing like the gods that our hunter-gatherer ancestors knew. Our ancestors knew of the gods. They were to be respected and honored, but there was no need to worship them. For our ancestors understood that the gods were so far beyond human that they had little, if any, interest in us. The gods had no more interest in us than a mountain has in us, or the wind, or the rain. It is only as a result of the fall, and our coming to see ourselves as so special, that we start to believe the gods, our new human-created gods, are so obsessed with us. The post-fallen recovery. The mess that we have gotten ourselves into since adopting totalitarian agriculture is not something that most people want to face up to, as it can feel overwhelming to do so. The majority of people prefer to ignore all this and go about their lives as normal, or focus on the positives. In many ways, that is understandable though it may be, if we do not face up to the state that we are in. Then, like ignoring a cancer, the problems will not go away. Instead, they will spread and become worse. One thing that being a psychotherapist and a client in psychotherapy too really taught me is that things can only be changed, properly changed, if and when we have the courage to fully and unflinchingly face them. It is not something most people want to do, hence the psychiatrist M. Scott Peck referring to therapy as the road less traveled. And if we are to understand shamanism too, then it is important to understand that shamanism is not a light and fluffy path. The shaman is not someone who shies away from facing difficult things. Rather, it has always been the role of the shaman to be the person willing to face the things that really need facing, to be prepared to see into the darkness and see things as they really are. Remember, that is even what the word shaman means. Someone who can see in the dark and see the things that other people cannot or will not see. And the reality is that we really are in a truly incredible mess. What we have done and the way we are living is unsustainable and simply insane. This is what I have been thinking about for quite a while now. It is about that. Rewilding yourself. And if you see what this is about civilization, then there's no need for shame. There's no need for anxiety. There's no need for agreeableness. And there's no need to feel you're not good enough.
How much of what we've come to understand as good or bad behaviour is just social and cultural conditioning?
And there is a lot of rethinking and looking at things from different perspectives. And one of the books that also have helped me in this process is this one, Coming to our senses. An ambitious and provocative analysis of the relationship between culture, mind, and body in the history of Western society. It really gives you a deep insight about what culture, as in cult, actually is. It's very deep indoctrination that you have to be in a certain way to be accepted and to fit in. If there was no sharp divide between wild and tame, or self and other, there was also no such divide between sacred and profane, or heaven and earth. This is why the adjective uncivilized does not just mean someone who does not live in a city-based culture, but someone who is not socially, culturally, or morally advanced. Someone who is rude, thoughtless, barbaric, ignorant, and uncouth. Civilized people are not wild. To people in the new city-based cultures, wild became a derogatory term meaning savage, untamed, and something that is out of control. As if those are obviously bad things. Yeah, and they used to call the pagans heathens, or still do. Civilization is all about control. Control over nature, of course, but also control over our own human inner nature. Eventually, as we moved into cities, and the first city-state culture developed, the first organized religions emerged. Whatever else these religions may have been, they were also generally agents of further domestication and control. For central to the message of most of these religions is we have to guard against our animal nature and natural instincts. There is another great book that comes to mind, which is The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, where he exactly points out that trusting your instinct when it says danger, 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 it can be life-saving. And this is what our instincts are for, to grant our survival in the wild, or also against so-called civilized predators, the modern predators, psychopaths, narcissists. The fundamental categories that presented themselves now with domestication were two, wild and tame, and eventually all forms of thought, down to the present day, came to be based on this model, the raw and the cooked. It is a coarse model, and one lacking in subtlety, especially in the West. Asian civilization modified it somewhat by positioning a Taoistic or dialectical relationship between polar opposites. This is why, in the West, thinkers such as Jung and Marx or William Blake have almost prophetic status. Thousands of plants that are very different from each other, for example, all get lumped into one category as edible, or its opposite, inedible. In a similar fashion, most animals now become enemies, partly because they were a menace to crops. The process of domestication thus had important psychological consequences. Much of the animal kingdom seemingly disappeared. The greater part of it was turned into an other. On the eve of the scientific revolution, the making of human fears explicit by means of freakish animal imagery reached its peak in the chaotic and disturbed iconography of painters such as Hieronymus Bosch. But after this, making fear explicit in this way is abandoned. It survives in fairy tales, in which human freaks, people with gross deformities, often appear, as we have said, as agents of liberation. The hag witch, who is treated with respect, gives the wandering hero the secret he needs to slay the dragon, for example. It also survives in dreams, but all of this is for children. Adults need not bother about it, supposedly. Thus, fear of the animal other acquires a whole new dimension during the modern period. It becomes vague, unspecified, repressed, and all the more terrifying as a result.
How much of what we've come to understand as good or bad behaviour is just social and cultural conditioning?
All about a construct which was being made to control us in order to free yourself from this cage, the cultural cage. You need to revolt yourself. It is about that. And just let go of all of this that has been imposed on us for such a long time. Amanita muscaria will help with that. Amanita muscaria is the key to rewilding yourself. Go back to nature, your roots, your true self, who you really are deep within. Amanita muscaria will help discover that which is hidden